Eduardo Baldaci tells that he was very young when he fell in love with the subject. Having lived in a time when space was a common topic on television led him to become an amateur astronomer.
His passion for astronomy started in 1969, when he was a baby, a child, and I had the rare chance to see a man land on the moon, because my family was privileged to have a television at home. So when I saw Neil Armstrong land on the moon, I don't remember, but that must have moved me a lot.
And in the 1970s, children watched cartoons like National Kid, Captain Asa. Everything was about space. It wasn't just violence like today. So that awakened in me a great interest in space things, in astronomy.
And then, since I was a child, I insistently asked my parents to take me to the Gavea Planetarium, since I lived in Rio de Janeiro. So that dream was born, and always when they asked me what I was going to be when I grew up, because at that time people had a dream of being something when they were adults, So I replied by pointing to the sky.
I don't know if I was meant to be an astronomer. I don't know if I was meant to be a pastor. I ended up being both. A passion that has evolved over time. After several pieces of equipment, he managed to win one of the most modern telescopes available on the market, a gift that came as recognition for more than 30 years dedicated to astronomy.
Now, when Cuiabá was named as a host city for the World Cup, we had the dream that Cuiabá would have a fixed observatory.
So we worked on this with politicians, with people of influence in society, so that Cuiabá could have this observatory, which would be a center for tourism, education, science.
And we were not successful in that.
And in 2011 I wrote a letter, the biggest face to the United States, to the largest telescope manufacturer in the world, which is Celestron. And I told my astronomy legacy since '83, what I did here in Cuiabá, the schools I assist with telescopes, because many schools invite me to give a lecture, show the sky. And Celestron then partnered with me. He decided to donate this telescope to me only on the condition that I go to Los Angeles to pick up the telescope. As Los Angeles is a bit far and expensive, and I didn't have the money for it, I went after several sponsors in Cuiabá.
So shopping malls, supermarkets, businessmen, each one helped with a little. I made up the entire ticket and also the money to pay the excess baggage that this generated and the tax by the federal revenue, and I made this trip to Los Angeles in September 2011, from where I received this telescope from the manufacturer.
With the arrival of this telescope to Mato Grosso, astronomy gained momentum, because there was more demand, more schools, more media coverage, more partners, and we founded an NGO.
And then another instrument appeared, and another instrument, and we campaigned in the street, and then we didn't get the physical observatory, but we have this itinerant observatory, where we go to a square, go to a neighborhood, go to a school with much more agility than perhaps it had fixed. The work of astronomer Eduardo Baldaci has borne fruit. Andre Sartori, also an amateur astronomer, was a shy admirer of the subject. But when he found out about the work carried out by Baldaci, things changed.
I started very young. In fact, when I lived in Santa Catarina, I already had a passion for astronomy. And then when I came to live here in Cuiabá, 9 years ago, I met Professor Baldaci on television in a program that he presented. And then I got in touch. We established a first contact, and the passion only grew along with it. Then I saw that astronomy really wasn't just me who was crazy. You know, there were other crazy people in the middle of the path. And it grew. We started to participate in events together. He invited me, always with the greatest respect I had for him. You know, he always calls himself an amateur, but in fact he is a true teacher for us.
But don't confuse astronomy with astrology. Little Ulysses knows very well the difference between one thing and another.
Astronomy studies physics and real science in the astros. Astrology, on the other hand, studies fictional facts and the imaginary about constellations such as Sergeant, Virgin, Capricorn. The only thing that has to do with it is that it sees with the sky.
Gradually people arrive to help with the work. Professor Eladuenis helps transport the equipment. It is a telescope at home, but it is really something very timid compared to what they use at these events in the public square.
Mine is a small spyglass that I have at home there, because I also like to look at the sky at night there. We participate in all the events there are. We provide transport to help, you know, and we are participating with everyone together.
Today, an NGO was created to ensure the necessary advances to make astronomy increasingly accessible to the population. It is the NGO Space, Society for the Advancement of Astronomy, Citizenship and Education.
From the moment we met Baldaci, who was a pioneer, an amateur astronomer, we added people and even founded an NGO, which today is consolidating the municipal public utility law in its final phase. So, as soon as it is finished, be voted on by the Cuyaba City Council, we are forwarding the state public utility law.
So this will give more sustainability to our project, so that we can look for more partners for this project.
And after so long keeping an eye on the sky, what does the pastor and amateur astronomer have to tell us about what he learned from the subject? Baldaci guarantees that the universe brings concrete answers that can help human beings to give meaning to their existence.
Astronomy has some lessons to teach us. I think that astronomy is, above all, a lesson in humility, because when we look and see that we have a billion trillion stars, and that we are just a little sand in this whole cosmos, we are suffocating from nothing. Just like a teacher of mine used to say at school, we ask ourselves that question, which is the question of humanity. Where did we come from and where are we going? Because we are a tiny grain of sand in space. In my case, I believe in God and I believe in the creator of the universe. So astronomy for me also served me as this issue of understanding that God exists, and through astronomy I also try to show people what has been in the Bible for over 2,000 years, that the heavens manifest the glory of God and the firmament proclaims the work of his hands. Since people looking here have the same feeling of humility that I had, and they ask, but what am I doing here? What is my purpose in this life? And they can find this question, which is the question of humanity. Where did I come from and where will I go?
What is the answer?
I came from God and I will return to him.
I came from infinity and I will return to infinity.
And that's my answer.